wait a minute. Well, got up to 13 brave souls have gotten on. That's nice. Let's just wait another couple of minutes. While we're waiting, Will or Tucker, do you want to give the speech?
Sure, I'll do it.
Okay.
So welcome, everybody. If this is your first time joining us, everyone's going to remain muted throughout the meeting except committee co-chairs and the presenters. Following the presentation, the co-chairs will call on members of the public wishing to speak. You can participate by going to the reactions icon, pressing the raise hand button, and only press it once so that way it doesn't go back down, because it's only like, click once and it goes. If you're on the phone, it is *9 to raise your hand and *6 to unmute. Be on the lookout for the prompt asking you to confirm to unmute once the co-chairs call on you. The chat is for technical support only. If you have any issues or problems, I will see the chat and we'll see if I can help you fix whatever issues you're having, or if you have any questions. If you have an older version of Zoom, you will need to go to participants section to raise your hand. And please don't raise your actual hand or wave at the screen because we may not be able to see you. So if you have any issues, just chat me for support.
All right, let me get started here. So I was waiting for Dan Kaminsky to get on. The purpose of today's meeting was to respond to the map that was issued by the districting commission. But the districting commission has failed to issue a map. Dan Kaminsky from Citizen Union will be joining us to give us an overview where we're going. But before we start that discussion, I just wanted to go over the voting date so everybody is aware where we are and know how to vote. The voting registration deadline is over. That was June 3rd, and absentee ballot request online was over yesterday. So the only way you can request an absentee ballot is in person by the Board of Elections, and you have to do that by June 27th. Okay, early voting starts on June 18th and ends on June 26th. So who are we voting for in this primary? We know that there's a primary on June 28th and another one on August 23rd. And that was a result of the debacle on the districting maps that were put together by the Democrats and then were overturned. So on June 28th, you'll be voting for governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, comptroller, the assembly, Supreme Court, civil court, and current surrogates court. So the only positions that will be voted on in August are the congressional seats and also the Senate seats. Those are the two because of the delay in accepting the maps will be voted on at that point. As in the past, your regular, and then the election is primaries on June 28th. Again, as in the past, your early voting location may be different than your regular voting. So it should go to NJ Votes, and that will have your voting location. So does anybody have any questions or comments? I see Erica, let me, on that. Erica, can you unmute Erica, please?
Thank you. I have just one comment and one question. So I already voted. I got it absentee, and it was actually governor, lieutenant governor, surrogate, member of assembly, and member of the state committees. There was no comptroller.
Oh,
for June 28th.
Oh, okay. Interesting. I was looking at New York City voting guide, and they obviously
Well,
issued it early. They issued it early because it had everybody, and I didn't realize that. All right, so.
no. And the question I actually have is, I saw, I think it was last week, that now this is only going to stand for a year because the judge. So we're going to lose a potential senior member of Congress because of this shit show, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, that's what happened. Dan's on. Great. Yes, that's exactly.
The idea was that.
That's exactly what happened. Now we have Congresswoman Maloney and Congressman Jerry Nadler in the same district, and since you can only have one congressperson, one of them will no longer be in Congress. Why don't we go to Elaine? Elaine, can you?
Thank you. Question. I've done the absentee for what's coming up, but I heard that you would have to keep requesting an absentee for each.
Yeah, the second primary too. You have to.
Primary? Okay.
Second absentee. I don't have the dates yet, but you're going to have to do a second absentee for the August, which is very important for those of us who support Carol. So many people are in their summer homes, so she's going to need to do a big campaign. Jerry too. I mean, so many people in both these Upper East and Upper West go away, so we're going to have to encourage people to do absentee.
And then for November, you're going to have to do another absentee?
I would assume so.
I guess, okay. I just wanted to double check.
I would assume so. I think for each election, they're making you do one, but our Board of Elections is so incompetent that. Anyway, let's see. Is that everybody who wants to talk on this topic? Because I want to move along. The next topic is going to be big. All right. So hopefully everybody is clear. Get your absentee ballots or go to vote, and then you can do it all over again in August. Okay, so the main purpose of today's meeting is to talk about the New York City redistricting. As I said, originally they were supposed to issue a map on June 7th. And they didn't. And the explanation was that there were so many comments from the public that they felt they had to have more public hearings. So I would like Dan Kaminsky to give us an overview, and then I'm going to call on Michelle. And I actually attended the first public hearing, and I did give testimony on behalf of Community Day using, that we had said. So but I'd like Dan, who was.
Yeah, I'm here and I'm unmuted.
Oh, good. So Dan, why don't you give us an overview, what's happening and where we are and what dates we should be aware of as we move forward, please.
Will do. So firstly, it's really nice to be back with you all. You'll have the distinction of, I've at this point done dozens of trainings, but you're still the only group that has reached out to me. Usually I have to spend 100 emails nagging groups for me to go to them. So a special place in my heart for that reason. And when we did that training, it was before much of the state level debauchery has gone down. So if folks are confused about that process, Sherry went over it a little bit, but I'm also happy to answer questions about how that has unfolded and kind of the overall scope of that. I do want to clarify though, something that was said before. So the thing that just came out on Friday was that the assembly lines will be redrawn. So that's the newest turn in the saga, that assembly lines, it will not affect this election. So this election, June 28th, it's too close. So June 28th is still the primary day for assembly. As Sherry mentioned, comptroller and AG are theoretically on the ballot, but they're not, because neither of those positions are getting primaried. So it's the races that Sherry mentioned before.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay.
No problem. Yeah. And the big ones being governor, lieutenant governor, and assembly. And assembly is still on the ballot, but for 2 years from now, the lines will have to be redrawn because it followed the same process of infirmity as the legal language that we saw with the state Senate and Congress. Again, happy to go through that more if there are questions and kind of give a fuller scope. But the reason I was invited here today was to talk about the council redistricting, which is happening now. As Sherry mentioned, and Sherry told you mostly pretty much what you need to know, but the original date for the commission to release its first draft map was on June 7th. They decided to postpone that June 7th deadline in favor of opting for more opportunity for public engagement. So the first hearing was in Manhattan, and that's great. Actually, Manhattan, interestingly, did not show up very much. So I think Sherry was the only person from your general part of town that came to that hearing or testified in that hearing. But they decided for the outer boroughs to go to each one of those as well. So now there's 4 additional hearing dates, one in each of the outer boroughs. The tentative dates, they have not been confirmed, are June 27th, June 28th, July 6th, and July 7th for those hearings. To be very clear what these hearings are, the purpose of them is for people to inform the commission of what they believe lines should look like for the first draft map. And so hopefully that testimony can help inform that first draft. And then from there, the commission will draw the lines accordingly. And then there's a follow-up opportunity as well that is mandated in the charter for people to come back and comment if they got it right or not. So those are the tentative dates. We don't know the locations yet. Those are yet to be confirmed. Generally, we're viewing this as a good thing because we being Citizens Union, the organization I work for, because the more opportunities to engage in this process, we think the better the process will unfold. So obviously with what happened at the state level and the chaos and kind of, I would say disaster that occurred there, there's, I'm sure, a lot of cynicism for any changes that happen. But really, from us, that's how we're viewing it. In terms of the sort of longer haul perspective, so what this likely means, so if they hold their fourth hearing, their July 6th as is right now the tentative schedule, they will probably need some amount of time to draw that first map. So we assume that first draft map will come out sometime in mid-July. But again, that's an assumption. That's not based on anything other than logic. And then the charter mandates that there needs to be a 30-day window between the first draft maps and then the public to digest those maps and then comment on those hearings, which would mean that the follow-up round of hearings will happen in mid-August. And again, presumably from there, the first time submission to council in mid-September. So that's the general overview. Their argument is that they're legally allowed to change the dates so long as they don't interfere with the June 2023 election. So the commission's lawyers are saying that this was allowed because so long as there's no interference ultimately with the June election, so long as the dates don't ultimately, force that to change, that they have a little wiggle room. So that's how this was done. And happy to answer any questions as it relates to that update or the state or anything else.
I don't see any questions at the moment, so I failed to introduce myself. I'm Shari Wiener, co-chair of Voting Reform Task Force, here with my co-chair Anthony Cohn, who's on. Anthony,
Yes.
if you watch the hands going up as we
You
go
bet.
through this, and you can call on people. All right, as I said, Michelle and I both spend hours listening to the hearing. I did, just because I happened to be there. I was able to online offer our testimony, and I offered that, we had prepared a letter, if you recall from the last meeting, being very upset that there were no women, very few women. 4 of the 15 were women on the district commission. And since that was a done deal, we had asked that staff have women, since their first 4 appointments were all men. Maybe Dan can share with us how they did that, and if we do have any women, because women have a different perspective on this, and we know that it's the staff comments that the commissioners rely on. But I know Michelle has to leave, so Michelle, why don't you talk about how that whole group in Queens testified, and how their issues, which really don't relate to us, and your thoughts, so we can have you before you speak before you have to jump off.
Sure. Thanks very much, Sherry, for taking that into consideration. Yeah, we were on that meeting. It was a very, very long meeting. I listened. I did not testify because, other than the letter, we had no position to offer. So I was mainly listening to hear what others had to say. All of the groups from Queens were extremely well organized. They presented their interests very, very well. They presented their requests very, very well, and the rationale for all of the changes or whatever it was that they requested. There was a lot of research that went into it, a lot of care, and it was really a pleasure to listen to them because they knew exactly what they were doing. They were very, very well organized. So the question here is, what can we learn from that? Number one, our community doesn't really, it doesn't reflect, or it doesn't have the situation that we could use to unify us that the neighborhoods in Queens had. In one way, their issues made it easy for them to organize, to come together. It made it easy for them to form groups. Maybe that's a good thing. To me, it was a little of concern. I mean, it is what it is. I'm not proposing to change it, but we don't have the circumstance here. We are more of what we used to call the melting pot. I am very happy for a melting pot. And while the different neighborhoods around the city are wonderful to go to taste the culture and the food and all that, and while the unity of language and business interests is the same, that's not necessarily the situation in every borough. And with the exception of certain pockets here in Manhattan, it's not really the rule of Manhattan. I mean, here we have a neighborhood like Chinatown, we have Little Italy, we may have an Indian area in the 20s, but here on the Upper East Side, we don't have that kind of thing to necessarily coalesce around. For me, that's a good thing. I'm happy that we're very diverse and we're in dispersed and we're mixed up and we're all that. So then, of course, the next question is where do we draw the numbers from? they're asking us to chop these numbers out of districts 4 and 5. What I'm trying to say is that in Queens, it was much easier for them to do because like-minded neighborhoods or neighborhoods that were culturally similar, they were able to divide themselves accordingly. And where a district like that was interrupted, they were able to ask that it be put back together, and they could cite reasons for that: language interests, business interests, etc. That's not going to be so easy on the Upper East Side. So the only thing I came away with as a possibility for us, I don't know how it will sit with the occupants of what I'm about to mention, and whether or not this is even possible, whether or not we can have additional council districts, I don't know. Dan is shaking his head no, so I don't really know. But I was, because Stuyvesant Town and Peter Cooper have such large populations, and they were developed at around the same time, I was thinking that they could be separated out, but I believe they're all District 5, and the proximity is District 4, which doesn't have room to accept them anyway. So it would make sense to take them out of the population count and put them somewhere. But with the requirements of what has to be contiguous, it's not going to be that easy to do. So I mean, I think we need some numbers and some advice from Dan about that. The other area, which I don't think, others would really care about, but the only one that made any sense to me was Roosevelt Island. And I suspect there'll be opposition to that. Again, they would have to be moved to the district in Queens. That's the closest proximity to them. And we don't know the population of that district. And I know Lynn is not for that scenario. But other than that, our alternatives would be to slice off areas in the middle of our streets. And we don't really have the same kind of rationale to do that as existed in the other boroughs. We don't have a common purpose that is diminished by us being together, or that will be enhanced by pulling us apart. So if somebody could come up with that, fine, I'm open to it. I just wasn't able to think of it. I don't know that Sherry was either, just from our talks after the meeting. And so I think that is the dilemma. Now, if we can't have additional districts, why is that, Dan? Does that sort of ruin the count, dividing up the count? I mean, what's the explanation for that?
When you say additional districts, you mean having more
Dan?
districts? Yeah, I'm here. You mean having more districts in Manhattan?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. You can't hear me.
Manhattan.
Yeah, we can hear you.
So Manhattan is
Okay, sorry.
the borough. Okay. So 51 council districts is set in the charter. So that's not changing. The number of council members is not changing. And the Manhattan is the overpopulated borough. There's a couple other districts, in Western Brooklyn, Western Queens, but there's virtually no chance Manhattan is getting, not virtually, there is no chance Manhattan is getting extra districts. So that I can tell you pretty plainly. I know there's a couple of hands up. So Sherry, would you rather me comment on what Michelle said, or I think the board members are probably more important. So you can
Well,
go to them first.
You know what I wanted to do, and I was remiss not, I wanted to get Michelle in, so that's why all right, let me go over what we're talking about. District 4 has to lose 11,202 people. District 5 has to lose 8,551 people to get it to the ideal population, to give you a sense of what we're doing. And
Can I clarify that statement?
Sure.
Is that okay? So she says has to.
Sure.
Ideal population is just that. It's the ideal population. You don't have to get to that exact number. So you have to get below a maximum number, and the maximum number is 177,000 people, and the ideal population is 172,000 people.
So it's within 5%, is that correct?
Between the largest and the smallest districts, there's a 5% deviation allowed, right? So smallest district in New York City cannot have less than 168. Largest district in New York going forward over the next decade, largest district can't have more than 177. So when she says 11,000 people for Council District 4, that's to get to your ideal population. That's commissioners, I think that's great, but really you just have to get below 177,000 people, which if you're at right now, you're at 184,000 people. So that means you have to lose 7,000. It might be up to 11,000, but it's the minimum, just to give an idea, is 7,000. And then District 5 is much less. I think it's just a few thousand. It's 181,000 right now. So you have to lose 4,000. Could be more than that, but at minimum 4,000. So Michelle, just to comment briefly on your first two recommendations of Stuytown, I looked up, Stuytown has 22,000 people in it. And Roosevelt Island has 11,000 people in it, right? So we're talking about a census tract is what you're going to be looking for, or a couple of census tracts. We're not looking for whole parts of whole neighborhoods like Stuytown to cut out. So hopefully that's helpful. Sherry, sorry to.
But let me just follow up with that, Dan. So let's say minimally, we just have to lose 7,000. In District 5, 7,000. However, there were requirements about, District 4. So there were requirements that the districts had to be contiguous, or you had to get to them over a bridge, or you had to do this, or you had to do that. So in light of that, where would we put those 7,000 people that we would be taking out of District 4? I couldn't figure out which districts were contiguous or, over a bridge or what it was. Do you have a recommendation of that? Do you know what districts could receive that didn't have their own overpopulation issue?
Yeah, let me look at the maps for a second while you all are talking. And again, I see some hands, and I want to make sure they get heard. So I'll look at the maps right now and
well, while you're doing that,
around.
What's the minimum for District 5? So while you're taking the time to look at the map, we
minimum
have to
for
say
all districts is 177,000.
no. I mean, what's the minimum we have to lose for District 5? If it's 7,000 for 4, what is it for 5?
4,000.
Oh, okay. So now the question is to look at the districts that could receive them, which we.
Yeah, the only one who could receive it is districts 7 and 8, and I don't know where they are. Or 2, 7 and 8 can take. Let me just because we have new people on the call. Let me give you the criteria just quickly. This is what they're supposed to do, which is certainly not what they did in the congressional redistricting. We have to abide by one vote, one person, protect minority vote, have only contiguous districts. In other words, they have to touch, not have more than one crossover district per set of 2 boroughs, keep neighborhoods and communities of interest intact, keep district compact, prevent partisan gerrymandering, and avoid oddly shaped districts. Those are the criteria. We had invited, I see there's 2 hands up, but we had invited Lynn to talk about Roosevelt Island because it becomes the obvious spin-off. So why don't we have Lynn give her position on behalf of Roosevelt Island, so we have that. So can you unmute Lynn, please? Where did Lynn go?
Yeah, she's
Hi.
on.
So I just want to start with saying I may have some connectivity issues. I'm in a hotel room right now, and I dropped a little earlier. So just in case I drop off, I'll drop back on. And unfortunately, I got some documents out very late. I apologize for that, but for those on the committee, you should have received them. There were documents. So what I heard said was that it sounds like an easy thing to just throw Roosevelt Island into Queens, but I want to be very specific about the history of Roosevelt Island and what the intent was. So in the documents that I sent out earlier, I made 4 points. The first was that Roosevelt Island was originally created under Lindsay to be a Manhattan utopian community. Let me repeat that, a Manhattan utopian community where they wanted to try out what are the best practices and the best things to do for a community, and they created Roosevelt Island with that intent. The area code for the telephones for Roosevelt Island were 212. That's Manhattan, not 718, not any other borough, not way back when. They were 212. They purposefully, with great intent, created Roosevelt Island as part of Manhattan. The other thing that they did was gave us a New York or Manhattan zip code 10044. If you call up or just check the zip code, you're going to get a recording that says Roosevelt Island, part of Manhattan or Manhattan. Now, I know for people who come from other places, that probably sounds really confusing, but the original purpose and intent was that the island always be considered a part of Manhattan. So I want to frame that. I have forwarded some documentation that lists Roosevelt Island, the city, Manhattan, that kept structuring Roosevelt Island as part of Manhattan. And we were supposed to be, I don't know if this is played out the way that the intent was, to be a place where things, ideas and cohesive community were created. Roosevelt Island was the first place in the country to have ADA accessible sidewalks. Roosevelt Island was one of the first places to have apartments built specifically to be ADA compliant. That was before the ADA. They had a building that was built specifically only for seniors. This was to test the concept of creating a fully integrated, both economically, internationally and nationally, and in as many ways as possible with the seniors, with youth, to create a fully integrated community in Manhattan. And so when you talk to Roosevelt Islanders about the idea of not being considered part of Manhattan, they're going to look at you like you're crazy, that that's not even an idea for them, that that's not even a part of their thought process. And then, I heard that it was, well, Roosevelt Island is the throwaway. That's not how we feel here. I assure you that most Roosevelt Islanders identify with Manhattan and identify with being Manhattanites. And we're talking, this goes back to the late 70s. So I sent some documentation to help provide the proof of that intent, but I did want to talk about the basic concept of that intent. And so because we're part of the city that's being run by the state, it has created some interesting situations for us here on Roosevelt Island. But I can't more strongly emphasize that Roosevelt Islanders relate to themselves and to our place as being a part of Manhattan. And I appreciate that we are in the middle of the river, but a point I would like to make is that there isn't another island that's a part of, that it got moved to a different borough. What I understand is that there's areas in council places where they bordered a different council area and then got moved over. But we don't border Queens. I mean, as far as we're in an island in the middle of the East River who thinks of itself as mini Manhattan. So the affiliation and our experience is that of thinking of ourselves as what do I want to call it? The sanctuary of Manhattanites who work in Manhattan and then come over to Roosevelt Island to enjoy our green spaces. That is one of the ways that we Roosevelt Islanders view ourselves. And so I just wanted to pull out some of these, what I think are critical things. And one of the things that I have personally spent the last 30 years defending for Roosevelt Island is our tramway. I spent 20 years defending our tramway because we had real estate developers on the Upper East Side that wanted to get rid of the tramway to develop that area. We fought like heck to keep it apart, to keep it existing. It is now a Manhattan, I mean, it's now an icon of New York City, but it wasn't always that way. And it took 20 years of vehemently defending it. So know that I will be very vocal. I will be in your face about how I believe Roosevelt Island needs to stay a part of Manhattan and a part of District either 4 or 5. So
that's why the committee wanted you to have the opportunity to express that, and you've done it brilliantly.
I just want to interject. You're absolutely right, Lynn. Roosevelt Island has always been part of Manhattan. And I've always, in fact, imagined it as the very east side. And even projects like the Roosevelt Island competition in the mid-70s, the original housing competition, really focused on the ways the island related to the big island next door to Manhattan.
To Manhattan,
and,
yes.
Yes, exactly. And I think that you're right to emphasize the tram, because the tram connects to Manhattan. And it's the way, I mean, aside from the subway, frankly, it's the way most people have their first experience of Roosevelt Island is, in fact, taking the tram.
And that's we fought hard to keep the tram. We fought very hard to get the ferry over here coming from the Upper East Side. I mean, I've spent a lot of time fighting for what I call our share of Manhattan. And that's why I'm trying to emphasize those things, because it's not an accident that we still have the tram. That was a fight. I fought tooth and nail for that in multiple meetings after a very, very sweet gentleman by the name of Al Weinstein, who protected the tram for decades and decades. And some of you know Larry Parness, he can guarantee of what I'm saying about the fight that we had to maintain and keep our tram. But I see Roosevelt Island also as an iconic and beautiful part of Manhattan. And I always like to take every opportunity to invite you over here to see our artwork, to see our sculptures, to see some of these beautiful things that are on Roosevelt Island if you haven't been here yet. So I just want to throw that in too.
Thank you. Anthony, you want to call on some of our...
Yes. Okay, we've got, next up appears to be Paul Crickler.
Thank you, Anthony. I just wanted to echo what Lynn was saying. I've only been here 2 years on Roosevelt Island, but everyone here thinks they're part of Manhattan. And it isn't a nice oasis as part of Manhattan, an oasis in Manhattan that people don't know about. I'm not sure if you said this one, Lynn, because I got cut off of the Zoom briefly, but the other one might be the subway map that it says Roosevelt Island's within Manhattan, not Queens. But also, for those of you who haven't been here, it really has changed a lot in the last 2 years. There's a lot going on here. Nothing like you'd imagine. It was like 70 years ago. I'm going to send around a video I just saw today, where there's a lot of video footage of Roosevelt Island being set up, the accommodation, the buildings in the 70s. what it looked like then. It hasn't changed much in the center of town, but everything else has changed dramatically. And one thing I've learned about living here on Roosevelt Island, I've learned how to be invisible. All I have to do is to walk down to the East River, and if there's a Circle Line ferry going past with lots of tourists on it, none of them will see me because they're all looking at Manhattan. No one ever looks this way. I learned that one very quickly. But yeah, I fully support what Lynn said. People here think we're part of Manhattan. And we're here to represent what they think. That's what I'm doing as well.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Paul.
And I think what we have,
Got a lot of hands up now.
yeah, I'm going to skip, if it's okay, I'm going to skip to people who haven't spoken yet. Where'd I go? To Rita.
Hi. I always consider Roosevelt Island part of Manhattan. However, could you tell us what the district below us and the district above us,
That was
is there anyone who can absorb the 7,000 people or 4,000 people that we have to lose, and it has to be contiguous? That's what
District 2 is below District 4, and they can gain people. So going down.
going.
I
But what
think
about north?
I think our only options are either going, taking from the top or taking from the bottom. I don't know.
Well, that's what I'm thinking of, and that's why I asked, what is to the north of us? What is our boundary for District 5? Please, the north boundary.
District.
It's 96th Street, isn't it?
No, it isn't.
What is it, Dave?
It's very hard on these maps. I can't tell.
That's why I had difficulty.
It's
What
District.
Let me pull up a Zola and you guys can see, and I'll share my
good,
screen.
thank you.
District 5, on top of it, it has part of District 4, and then there's another district that comes around, and I don't know what that one is.
Are those districts overpopulated, or can they absorb some of our people?
District 2 District 2 could gain 3,800 to be at the maximum. Yes, District 2 could take some.
So that would be the southern part of.
Southern part. Yeah, that would be southern part. But I said I don't. District 5 has a little bit of District 4 on top, and then there's another. Let's see. Oh, we'll put up this.
There you go. So District 4 starts at 14th Street in Stuytown and goes up First Avenue, then over to, I believe this is 35th Street, and shares the border with Council District 2 right there, and then goes over to Broadway and follows Broadway up. If you go back to the historic, pre this version of District 4, this section right here was part of District 3. So what was gained in the last redistricting was this large section of Midtown following Broadway. What was also shifted was this little line right here, was a little bit different in the Sutton area community. I think it went from District 4 to District 5. This line right here, as it traces through 2nd Avenue, jumps over at 79th Street over to Lexington. That changed a little bit in that time, but I don't remember exactly how. And obviously the major change was this upper part of District 5 and District 4, which goes all the way up here. This is 96th Street, so you're talking 102nd Street or so. But previously District 4 had gone over and captured Stanley Isaacs.
So what's above District 4? Well, what's up there?
What's up here? So this is 98th Street where District 4 cuts off. And this is District 8. This is the Diana Ayala district. And it spans over in here to the Southern Bronx.
But
So this is one of those districts that's probably the most malleable, I would assume.
Okay. I just
But
had a
also
lot-
you do have sections of
It's okay.
Midtown that are very malleable between these districts.
Right, so
Okay.
District 8, which we'll just identify, they could gain 314 people to be at their maximum. It's
300
really,
314 or 3,014.
now District 6, what did I say? They could gain. No,
Dan has
just-
his hand up. I don't know if you want him to,
Yeah,
because he was,
let's Dan clean this up, yeah.
Sure, thanks all.
District
I'm sorry to jump lines because there are a couple other people that haven't spoken yet.
No. You're a
um,
resource person, that's why I have you here. So.
Yeah, happy to be it. So a few comments. Firstly, I definitely appreciated the comments about Roosevelt Island. Obviously, I can't say this necessarily with a guarantee, but I think there's very, very little chance it's getting removed to Queens. And I say that out of an informed position, which is that District 26, which is the Western Queens district, is one of the districts in New York City that gained the most population. They're like 40,000, 35,000 people over population. So the idea that they can absorb another 11,000 people, that's just not going to happen. And because districts have to be contiguous, it cannot go to District 22, which is the northern part, which does have to absorb population. But there's no bridge, there's no connection to Roosevelt Island and 22. So there's really no place for Roosevelt Island to go other than really 5, because 5 is again, districts have to be connected in some way, whether that's a trams are included, or bridges or something. So for all the Roosevelt Island people, those were, great comments, but again, I don't really see how there's a way that it could be anything other than it currently is. And then the second comment is a tool, Will, I think for you to use, which may be more helpful than Zola, is NYC. I can share my screen, or you can, nyc.redistrictingnu.org. And I'm recommending that because it has population counters as well as all the criteria for every district. And so that way, when you click around, I can put it in the chat, but I don't know.
would you either chat it to me, or you can
Great.
share your screen if it's easier? I
Sure.
really don't mind sharing mine, but
I'm happy to share it and just show it. And okay, so here's redistricting NU. It's the same idea as the website that Will was just showing. I think has a little bit better about the streets, so you can see. But when you click a district, it includes their population. It includes how many people above the ideal population, so you can get a feel for who has to do what in terms of grow, shrink, etc. And then it has plenty of other information too. So for example, one of the criteria is a district shouldn't be twice as long as it is wide. So here currently District 5 is twice as long as it is wide. Now, if you remember from the training, there are 4 criteria that are not mandated. That happens to be one of the 4. So commissioners try to keep things compact and not twice as long, but it's something that is allowed to be the opposite. So here, that currently is not following it, et cetera. So, Will, if you want to share your screen, I'll throw it in the chat, but that way when as I think Sherry mentioned, District 2 is under population, so that can absorb people. District 8 certainly could theoretically move more north and therefore get people here. I think what you're seeing is that so many lines are going to change. So between the fact that we grew by 600,000 people, and that growth happened in very specific parts of New York City, coupled with the fact that this year, the deviation between districts is 5% as opposed to 10%, means that, those two things combined means a very significant numbers of lives are going to change. One more thing, and then I really want to make sure all of you are the ones who are driving this, not me. I'm just hopefully providing some context or information. Michelle at the beginning mentioned how in Queens, there's these cultural connections that make lines, easier to figure out. And I think that is true, but I also would say that commissioners have told me directly that they prefer things like infrastructure and schools and hospitals and things that not only identity. When a group says, oh, I'm surrounded by the same identity group, please keep us together. That's actually not a particularly strong argument for the commission. So the fact that that isn't the case in your districts actually is certainly, I wouldn't consider that something, there are many ways to connect districts other than just simply identity. And with that, I'll turn it back. Will, I guess I'll chat you this website, I think, to use.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay. Michelle.
I wasn't finished.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Rita.
If District 8 can absorb, first of all, we need with what Dave just said, we need all the museums in one district because that's the infrastructure. If District 8 can absorb some people, so then we can't have to lose some of the people, some of the area in the northern part of our district. And if we can do it, we don't have to do a lot. If we can also lose a little bit of the southern part of the district, then we're okay.
Yeah, I think we have to go either north or south. We can't go side of it.
So that's why, I mean, just a little off the top and a little off the bottom, and we're
For both 4 and 5, I would think.
yes. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, now, Michelle.
So yes, I'm in agreement with that. And I was looking at the same thing once we couldn't have another council district. So that sounds fine. However, we need to do that. We need a count of actually each block. For example, if you're going north and you're going to put however many people, I guess that is at the 7,000 or which one is the 4,000? How many blocks of the district do we have to give to either 8 and or 2? And while we see the population here, we see the population of the district, but we are going to need to know the population of each of the blocks on the district. So if we end, did we say we end at 98th Street, District 5? Dan, did you say 98th Street?
So District 4 that I'm showing right now ends at 98th Street.
Okay, and District
I believe
5?
District 5 ends at 100th Street right up here. So you're looking at the top end of the district here.
Okay, so let's say we were going to take District 5 has 7,000 to get rid of, and District 8 can accept that amount. If we've made that determination, then how many blocks do we need to change from District 5 to District 8?
Dan, you sent me this.
Yeah, Will has shown it the best. So I don't know of a population counter by block. The best thing I know of is a population counter by census tract. So Will just clicked the census tract, which is usually a few blocks. You could see on the map. The census tract he happened to click had 7,000 people in it. So theoretically, that was a good census tract. But you'd have to go through and like click where, which census tract most looks, best. You can also, Will, if you click neighborhood tabulation area, that can cut it into the neighborhoods. Oh, actually, no, we want to keep it census tracts. I apologize. On the right, though, if you click add map layers on the far right of the screen, and then click toggle on New York City Council districts. That's the one. Okay, so now it'll have the blue lines for where the council district are. And then you can, consider based on census tract. And then if you click the view data, you can see how many people are in that census tract and how it may make sense to move it. So that's another very useful tool when thinking about all of this.
Dan, do we have to be that specific, or can we testify that we're recommending that we, go up and down? Or do we,
You
do we
can, I
really
mean,
need to tell them? We don't, how many people?
the testimonies can look however you want it to look. And so it's very much up to you what you want to say. Certainly, if you give them a specific, so we think the northern boundary of the district should be 98th Street, then they know more specifically, oh, they think that's what the northern boundary should be. If you speak in more generalities, keep the museums in the district, which I think was a great statement and something absolutely to be included, then it's generalities. They have an idea of what you want, but it's not a specific geographic term that the commission is kind of in tune with. So
If I can just follow up, I think it's a good idea to be as specific as possible. And while it may be very difficult to determine the number of people on a block by block basis, studying these maps, which may be difficult to do with this very second, I think will yield us the information. It seems that it will give us the information, because then we need to know, okay, if we're going to give Council District 5 numbers to Council District 8 on the north side, and then do we want to take Council District 4 and give some of those numbers to Council District 2? And if we can specify those blocks or come close to specifying those blocks, I think that solves our issue. And if we can determine the actual blocks, then we will really know what it is, what our dividing line will be and what it means. And then we can evaluate and make sure that it's not interfering with the infrastructure. Like one of the things is you want subway stops, to be shared or whatever, something like that. But if that's actually the factual case that we can get these numbers, then I think we've solved it. If we say,
I'm just wondering, Will and Tucker, is that something that staff could do for us?
Tucker's our intern, and I'm sure he's happy to do some poking around on these two websites and see if he can find, the right number.
Yeah,
But-
you said Tucker?
Yeah, I can look around and see what would be impacted and where numbers can go up or down.
Yeah, that would be really
yeah.
helpful, because I
that
don't
would
think
be fabulous.
I don't think CB8 members can really do that, but if you can do that, and
I mean, you guys see how easy these two websites are to use, and you are the experts. So I would, defer to you all as board members who've lived in the community for decades compared to Tucker, who's much younger.
Well, I think what we're saying is that there really is very little difference between 94th Street and 98th Street. I mean, what is our justification? It's just really a numerical calculation. I think there's a consensus that that's what we're going to do. We're going to send some from 5 up to 8 and some from 4 down to 2. And it's not just a question of how many streets. So I think that was
My only question is, I guess it'd be to Dan in this case. Is that a realistic scenario as to what might happen with District 5? Because my only thinking is there a chance that they end up adding a crossover district from either Manhattan to Queens or Manhattan to Brooklyn that sort of changes up this calculus? Or if that isn't the case, is that looking at the numbers in the maps, is that a realistic path that District 5 might change in its shape? Or is there a more optimal or more desired path that they might take that I might want to work on instead of that?
who might want to take. I mean, we're just going to be making a recommendation to the commissioners, and then they're going to give a map, which we're still going to respond to. But since they haven't issued their map and they're asking it, and since we've come up with something that seems very logical, I would be very comfortable presenting it to the board. And in fact, I'm thinking of doing it in general terms tomorrow night and get authorization so we can get this out, in July, we don't have time to wait for the July board meeting.
So do we need a resolution tonight, just expressing that concept?
Yeah, I think we should do that.
So I
Well,
think Peggy wants to offer that resolution. I can't.
No, Peggy wants to speak.
all right,
I think we have to also, though, bear in mind, given the massive residential construction going on right now in our district, that we are soon going to exceed the maximum, even if we cut out certain sections that we're talking about now. And is there a way that we can factor that aspect into this, because soon our population is going to be much larger than it is even now.
but it's based on the 2020 census, so we don't have to worry about that.
But soon that will be irrelevant.
Yeah, but it's no, it's not irrelevant. The redistricting is based on the 2020 census, whatever that was. Those are the numbers. So yeah, we may gain more population, which will be an issue in 2030, but at this moment, we don't have to consider that. Dan, am I correct on that?
Yes.
Yes, you're correct. Oh, sorry. I'm
Anthony,
muted.
yeah,
Yes,
that's
you're correct.
What the 2020 is. So whatever it is, it is. So. Okay, I think which is great. I'm really surprised we've gotten this far, but I think we should put forth a resolution for the board meeting tomorrow night, based on this, criteria. Does anybody want to make a motion to that effect?
Sure. I think there are a handful of
There are a handful.
people.
All right, let's
Yeah.
speak. Okay, why
All
don't we
right.
do that? Go ahead.
Okay, we've got Rebecca Weintraub.
Hi, thank you so much for hearing from me. So I want to do two things. One, which is reiterate my support for keeping Roosevelt Island in CB5. I think that, and as part of Manhattan primarily, I think it's obviously intended to be part of Manhattan, and we're all very proud to have it as part of our community. Second of all, while we were all talking here, I was just clicking around on the maps that were shared. And to me, it looks, it's not as simple as this, as what I'm going to suggest, because we're also going to, I'm sure, absorb from other places and then shift. So the lines may be very different. But the question came up, how many blocks is it approximately? And I clicked on a single census tract at the top of our district, 94th Street to 96th Street, 1st Avenue to 3rd Avenue, all of which touches the CB8, not CD, the City Council District 8 just above us. And that area had the over 4,000 and under 8,000 that is required. So you could cut 4 blocks and get us within the number that we're looking for. And again, it's not going to be quite that simple, because we will be shifting other lines to accommodate 4 and to move people, from other places, but it can be as simple as 4 blocks.
Rebecca, would you be interested in working with Tucker and helping him, since you seem to be comfortable working with this?
I would have to check to see if that is appropriate as your district leader, but I don't see why not. I would love to.
You're a community member, and
Yeah.
I will admit I'm totally computer illiterate. It's not something I'm comfortable working with. Or perhaps if Tucker needs, maybe Tucker can work together and come up with a couple of schemes.
Well, I'm happy to help be the voice of. I know I agree with what Will and Dan were saying about having this come from the community, and as a lifelong Upper East Sider, Lenox Hill and Yorkville resident, I'm happy to help be that voice.
Well, we've already given you guidance, so it is coming from the community board, but it's just somebody, a hands-on, right, Anthony? Are you comfortable with?
Yes, I agree. Oh yeah, I'm comfortable with that.
Okay. All right, well, Dan has his hand up again, so let's hear what, Dan doesn't like that idea or what?
Just
Dan,
that I'd rather hear from community members first. That's the priority. And then I'll give
Okay.
some 2 cents at the end.
okay,
So we have, excuse me, we have Lynn and then Rita.
So I would just like to say that in whatever resolution that we come up with today, I'm going to push it, I'm going to say it, that they're, but part of the resolution say that that we want Roosevelt Island to remain part
Perfect.
of the Upper East Side District.
I think there's consensus, nobody is
Yeah.
refuting that. All right,
So
let's.
I'd like to make sure that's totally off the table and have it be part of a whatever our resolution is.
I will make sure it's in the resolution. Roosevelt in District 5. All right. I guess Rita?
Yeah.
Rita?
I have a suggestion. What would happen? No, that's wrong. Not what would happen. Would we be in compliance if we used the boundaries for our community board for the boundaries of this districting? And would we be in compliance with that? In other words, from the north side of 59th Street to the south side of 96th Street, from the river to Fifth Avenue and all of Roosevelt Island. Would we be in compliance if that was our district?
No, we'd be way
No.
over the population.
Over?
Correct.
Way,
Yeah,
way
yeah.
over.
Oh, way over, way over. We have
Okay. So
Community District 5, Community District 8 has over
I think it's around here.
200,000 people.
It's like 220.
Yeah, it's 220 in just under 2 square miles.
So I'm going to stay with my original thing, a little off the top and a little off the bottom.
Yeah.
And Roosevelt Island sticks with us. Lynn, we've been together for a
230.
long time and we're not separating.
So just a few quick things. Firstly, it's awesome to hear the sort of passion and about keeping Roosevelt Island in Manhattan. And I would encourage you, so it's great that you're going to do a resolution, and it's also great for us to hear that, but the people that really need to hear it is the commission. So I'd strongly encourage folks to show up or to submit their testimony to the commission directly. I can put their email address in the chat. Oh, the chat isn't for everybody. I can send it to Sherry.
If you send it to me, I'll send it in the chat. I'll send it to everybody.
So I'll put it in just a second. But if you can, the commission has been very open about, you can email us whenever. They've said that right routinely. And so I encourage everybody, especially who feels passionate about this issue, to email the commission directly and express their feelings, especially those who spoke about it. Again, like I said, just from knowing the criteria, I don't foresee that that's going to change, but certainly that's it. The more testimony you can get in there about the issue, the stronger I think that'll be heard. So that's number one. Number two, I think mainly for Tucker, but when you're thinking about population, also make sure to look at different council districts around. So for example, Council District 3 is also like 30,000 people over. So that may affect who Council District 2 ends up absorbing in terms of population. And the other thing to say is in terms of Council District 8, so I think that is a very easy solution, as you all have said. You all have it honestly much easier than most council districts. I mean, again, think of if you were in Council District 3 with the Hudson Yards has come up, they have to figure out 30,000 people. That's its own very challenging situation. You only have a few thousand. But those few thousand people, well, now if you're saying to move them off the top to Council District 8, Council District 8 is a South Bronx and Northern Manhattan seat, which from a demographic and all sorts of other standpoints looks radically different than Council District 5. And so that is something to take into account as you're thinking about where to move who into. With that.
But Dan, Council District 8 has to lose what? Oh, what did they also have to lose? I don't know. We just, okay. I still think we have the framework of
Yes.
of a resolution. I will, and I guess I'll notify Russell that we want to be on the agenda, so it's
Yes.
not left for new business. And,
So all that we've done so far, I think someone moved that we have a resolution concerning this.
I'm
I
not,
don't
I don't know.
think it was seconded.
I don't
I'm
think anybody's made a
I don't think
okay.
anybody's read. We were talking. All right. So will somebody please make a resolution to the effect that
Sherry, can I opine for like
Sure.
one brief moment?
Sure.
Please.
Because you just discussed like Hudson Yards, and so much of Lower Manhattan has changed, and they're probably going to, by being an island, they're just going to force everything upwards probably. So what I would suggest is, instead of making your language so specific as these blocks and these blocks, I think your resolution should start with saying we like our districts as they are now, and recognize that there's going to be, we would like to only see modest changes to the way that they're drawn as they're currently configured. Instead of saying, you know, take from these 2 blocks or take from these 3 blocks.
No, we're not going to do that because we don't have it. I'm just going to say that we recommend that we go north. District 5 go north to District 8, and District 4 goes down to District 2. That's as specific as we can get until Tucker comes up with specific numbers. We're not going to have that for tomorrow night, but I think it's important we get it done. We get approval tomorrow night if they're going to start having their hearings at the end of June. If we wait till July, it's going to be too late. So, we're going to have to ask the board to trust us to get the more specifics as we move forward.
Yeah. I think, Sherry, I think Will actually, I think the language that we'll use there is very good.
Yeah.
And I think that the emphasis on we like what we are now and would like it to change as little as possible, I think is a good resolution. And I don't think we have to talk about moving north or anything else, because the fact of the matter is that our districts are all going to be, everything is going to be pushed north and east in a weird way.
Yeah, it's going to be a resolution. I mean,
Yeah. All right. So I've got
move up and down
Peggy.
Roosevelt Island. I mean, that's all it's really going to say at this point. And
Yes.
Get permission from the board to move forward with that, and then we'll work to refine it after Tucker and Rebecca give us some specifics.
Okay, I think Peggy has her hand up and is almost.
I'd like to make a resolution that we ask to retain our district as currently configured with, if necessary, mere modest changes.
Is there a second? I see Gail's hand and also Rita's.
All right, Peggy made it. Rita second.
Yeah, and Gail.
I only need one. Okay.
Okay.
Well, Gail's hand. Oh, I thought Gail was.
But Gail's hand is up.
Let's get Gail. She was. Gail.
Yes.
Did
I
you want to
second it.
talk? Oh, you
No, I,
second?
no, just second it. I agree with
Okay.
Peggy.
Okay. Wow.
Is there discussion here, or is someone interested in calling the question?
Or does anybody have any specific language that they'd like put in the resolution that we should use? Any thoughts or?
Lynn has her hand up. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Lynn.
So while I appreciate that the request that Peggy put in was that they stay the same district, I am very concerned that that when they look at the map, that if anybody looks at Roosevelt Island without knowing it, without understanding some of the history, I think it does, as you guys looked at it, look like a place that could be cut away, cut over, changed. So what I'd like the resolution to specifically say is current district, including Roosevelt Island.
Oh, yeah, and I'm going to say
Okay.
as Roosevelt Island has been an integral part of Manhattan, it is our recommendation that it remain a part of Manhattan, definitely.
Now, Sherry, are you saying that as a separate resolution or a part of the one that Peggy presented?
No, a part of the one that we're
Okay,
doing.
I just want to be really clear.
No, it's just one. We just need board approval to testify or do any interact. Before we have any interaction with the district and commission, we need approval from the board. So that's why I'm pushing to have a resolution for tomorrow night.
Oh, yeah, no, I totally agree with that.
And,
Yeah,
and Roosevelt Island will be part of it. That's the consensus we've come up with today. So yeah, definitely. All right. Now.
All right, Elaine.
Following what Lynn said, when you do the resolution, I would put in, given the historic nature of the
Okay.
Roosevelt Island, and
Of connection.
flush it out a little more from what Lynn said. I think
Yeah,
that's
all right, I'll fill that.
I think that's a good point.
Yeah.
okay.
Jim Roosevelt. Yeah, I'll spell that out a little bit. Okay. Guess I have my work cut out for me tonight. So I am going to go on the Fifth Avenue Museum mile thing. That looks like that's going to be fun. I'm going to go over there. But everybody,
Rita.
thank you so much. This has been wonderful.
I
And
think
I hope.
Rita had her hand up.
Who does?
Rita, we haven't voted on this yet, by the way.
Oh,
I
no,
want
let's take a vote.
I want to call the question and let's.
Thank you, Rita.
Okay,
And-
let's vote. So let's take a vote.
Is there a second to calling the question? Yes, I see
Peggy.
lots. Great.
Okay,
So
Go
we're gonna
ahead,
lower all the
Bill.
hands. If you are voting no, abstaining, or not voting for cause, I ask that you raise your hand and we'll unmute you so that you can vote. And give it a couple of seconds. I imagine this will be unanimous, and then I'll read the names of the board members who are still here because you
Yes.
did have several that dropped off. All right, so we have our two co-chairs, Anthony and Sherry. Then we have Gail Barron, Lynn Strong Shinazaki, Marco Tamayo, Paul Crickler, Peggy Price, and Rita Popper.
yes.
And all unanimous.
Great. Good. This was good.
Now,
Dan, I want to thank you so much
yes,
for your assistance. And I'm hoping you will be available to Tucker if he has any questions to help him. Yeah. All right, Tucker. So you have Tucker. We didn't set you off on your own. So you have Dan and you have Rebecca who can help put this together for us and be as, I guess we want as specific as we can be. But at least you know where we think we go. And look, it may not be accepted by the commission, but at least we will have some input. Okay, then can I have a motion? Seeing nobody else's hand up, can I have a motion to adjourn? Rita?
Well, we have Peggy and yeah,
Peggy and Rita. All right, everybody. Thank you so much.
thank
and
you.
See you tomorrow night. This was great, everybody. I'm really very pleased. I didn't think we were going to get to this point tonight. And Dan, thanks so much for being our guidance. And hope you'll, if you're around, come to our board meeting tomorrow. Okay, everybody.
Thank
again,
you.
Thanks again.